up and having a voice. Kia ora tātou.
The Honourable Eugenie Sage.
Mr Speaker, thank you. Tēnā koe. It's with very great pride that I stand here as Acting Minister for Women to acknowledge and celebrate 125 years of women's suffrage. Having been out collecting signatures on petitions, again for the asset sales referendum, I know personally just the slog that takes, but this is in the modern era where we've got telephones we can easily mobilise. So I pay tribute to the woman more than 125 years ago who collected petition signatures in the days when transport was a horse and cart, was walking through muddy streets, was having to push against the power of a controlling husband, was having to organise late into the night and disobey those husbands, was women who lost their jobs because they were fighting for women's suffrage, and much worse. But it was their collective power that ensured that petitions were brought to this House in 1891, in 1892 and finally in 1893 when it was successful, with 32,000 signatures that had been collected through a lot of hard slog. Because, Madam Speaker, the right to vote is a fundamental part of our democracy. It is what brings us all here. It is what gives us the mandate. It is what determines which party is in government. It's what gives us the strength in select committees to examine the legislation which the government puts before the House. It is what gives us the mandate to pass law. It is a fundamental right to vote, and the fact that it was denied to women for so long, and then as a result of all of that advocacy, all of that fighting, it was provided in 1893, is something we should celebrate. Because, Madam Speaker, New Zealand, Aotearoa as a country, is enormously progressive when it comes to matters electoral. Our MMP Parliament has ensured that we represent New Zealanders much more fairly, that we have more diversity in this place. And I think that goes back to those campaigns in the 1890s to provide us with suffrage. And as the Prime Minister noted, those early suffragists also were campaigning on the issue of equal pay and said that it was the most important issue after the franchise, and it had a huge impact on national welfare. So the suffragists knew that getting the vote was only the start. Being fairly valued and being paid in the workplace was next on their agenda. So it's really fitting today, and I was very proud to stand alongside Minister Lise Galloway on the forecourt of Parliament at the CTU's picnic and announce this government has introduced changes to the Equal Pay Act to ensure that we have pay equity in New Zealand, because for too long women doing very similar work to men or the same work have not been paid the same. That will end with the changes to the Equal Pay Act and the ability to use our negotiation and bargaining system to implement pay equity. So I want to acknowledge, Madam Speaker, not only the thousands of women who are involved in ensuring that we have the right to vote, but all of the hundreds and thousands of women who are working today in female-dominated industries. One of my early jobs was working in a laundry in a rest home and then cleaning toilets and working in the kitchen in that rest home. There was some lovely Pacifica woman there, but the boss was a man. We followed his orders, and I think our pay was significantly less than his. But it's doing that hard work, that mahi, that is so essential to the way families work, that is essential to providing incomes to families, to how society works. But women doing that work haven't been properly acknowledged, and that is why the changes to the legislation are so important in delivering more money to households and ensuring that we move towards a fairer society. I'm here today as Acting Minister for Women because our Minister for Women has a new baby. And it's a great place to be a woman in New Zealand right now when our Prime Minister can be in Parliament and have a new baby. And the photograph we have just had of all the women MPs in the library with the Prime Minister holding a baby, with the Speaker having been in the chair with a baby, reminds us that that is what we are here for. That is why we got the vote. That is why we're changing the law to make it fairer for all families, for all tamariki, so that they have a better future. And that right to vote is the fundamental starting place for that. Tēnā koutou. Nō reira, tēnā koutou.
Well, thank you, Madam.
Are you seeking the call?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I called just earlier.
I call David Seymour.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and can I join with other speakers in